Hi guys! Today I'm taking you to somewhere completely different from the high-end city restaurants that we've covered so far. This time we're heading way up north to the tiny fishing village of Berlevåg in the north of Norway to visit a place that truly surprised me, Restaurant Oliver. Now this is not your typical Michelin star fine dining restaurant, but this spot really deserves a mention. I still can't believe that a place like this exists in such a remote corner of the world. So, a bit of a context first. For the past 2 years, I've been living in Kirkenes, and while Berlevåg might not look close on the map, and it's a 4-hour drive, here up north it's almost considered local. The drive from Kirkenes to Berlevåg is incredible. You go through the mountain, you drive through lunar-like landscapes before descending to the sea, where you drive along the Barents Sea. It honestly feels like you've reached the end of the world. Absolutely beautiful. Berlevåg itself has just above 900 residents, and it's one of those classic Arctic fishing towns where life revolves around the sea. The Hurtigruten stops here, which is the coastal ferry that runs all the way from Bergen, and there's also a tiny airport, but the planes coming in here are more like buses, stopping at every little village along the way. So yeah, getting here takes an effort, but it's definitely worth it. Accommodation options in Berlevåg are limited. There's like one motel and a guest house, but here's a tip. I contacted the restaurant directly, and it turned out that they are renting out the apartment just above the restaurant. The apartment has 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and it even has a sea view. The interior is very retro, and it almost feels like stepping into a time capsule with old furniture, a cassette player, and all kinds of vintage details, but somehow it just works here. And I actually loved staying here. Restaurant Oliver is the passion project of Lars Vollan Pedersen, a local with a serious love for food. He first opened a street food stand in 2018, which got a lot of attention, even on Norwegian national TV. Then in 2022, he and his partner Alma opened Restaurant Oliver. It's a family-run restaurant, and their goal is to bring high-quality foods using local Arctic ingredients to one of the most isolated places in Europe. Now, they don't have a fixed tasting menu every day, but we were lucky to visit during one of their special tasting nights. For this particular evening, they had teamed up with a British chef and brought in Kristin Rajala, who writes a wine column for I Finnmark, a regional newspaper covering life and culture in Northern Norway. On the day we visited, the restaurant was completely full, and honestly, it felt like they were teaching the whole town what fine dining is about. The menu started with Amuse-Bouches. First came a Sri Lankan butter chicken. It was really good and definitely a surprise to see this served as an Amuse-Bouche. It was quite different from the traditional butter chicken, leaning more toward creamy than tomato-based, which might be the Sri Lankan style, but it was an interesting start. Next was a whale steak with pepper sauce and thyme onion foam. The sauce here was incredible, rich, savory, and very well balanced. The third amuse-bouche was lamb tenderloin with yogurt foam and a dill mint granita. The lamb was perfectly cooked, tender, and full of flavor, while the dill mint granita added a bright herbal contrast. All of these amuse-bouches were served with a small shot of vodka. It absolutely set the tone for the rest of the meal. Then came the 9-course tasting menu. It opened with a 40-ingredient salad, which was both fresh and fun. Every bite brought a new texture or flavor, and trying to guess the ingredients became a little culinary game. We think we managed to figure out about half of them. Following that was king crab in garlic butter, served with Skagen Mayo and Dill Granita. The crab itself was fantastic, however, the grilled granita felt a bit overpowering in this portion. A slightly smaller amount would have better preserved the balance of the dish. The next dish was a celery root chicken soup with chicken liver pâté and warm brioche. Really good. The pâté was rich and the sauce tied everything together. The brioche was good, but maybe it could have been just a little bit lighter and airier in texture. After that came beef tenderloin taco. This is just how I like my tacos. The homemade tortillas were spot on, the beef juicy and flavorful, and the tomatoes added just the right balance to the dish. What really surprised me was how well the beer pairing worked with it. Next came the reindeer tenderloin, served with mushroom panna cotta, pickled pear, and a red wine sauce. This was a beautifully composed plate. The reindeer was tender and deeply flavorful. The pickled pear added a touch of acidity and lightness, and the mushroom panna cotta gave the whole dish a deep, earthy base. A very well-rounded course. Then came the risotto, which appeared rather unusually late in the meal. Still, it worked. It was rich, creamy, and full of earthy flavors. Next was the duck breast with garlic, herb, leek, cherry sauce, and parsnip puree, and this might have been my personal favorites. The duck was cooked to perfection, and the combination of the sweet cherry, earthy parsnip, and savory leek was just beautiful. Everything about this dish was balanced and well thought out. Then came dessert. First, a sticky toffee pudding with ice cream. As you may know, I normally am not much of a dessert person, but I do love toffee and caramel, and this was incredible. Finally, the meal ended with a blueberry panna cotta. It was full of fresh berry flavor and the perfect closing note. The wine pairings were creative and well thought out. Of course, given the price point of around 1,000 kroner, the wines were in top shelf luxury bottles, but they were thoughtfully chosen, well matched to each dish, and genuinely good. Each pairing felt intentional and added depth to the overall experience. The interior of the restaurant was a nice surprise too, modern and cozy, with a warm, welcoming vibe. There's a bar area at the end, and actually quite a few tables for such a remote spot. Now to the service, and I'll be honest, the service wasn't exactly what you'd find in a Michelin star restaurant or in a typical fine dining spot, but of course, I also didn't expect that. There was only one server, and that was Alma herself, so things moved a little bit slowly, and I missed having someone describing each dish in detail. But considering the remoteness of Berlevåg and the fact that they're working with a tiny team, it was still very impressive. And I genuinely hope that in the future they will be able to grow and expand, because this restaurant has huge potential. What I did miss was having a printed menu of all the tasting items. It would have been nice to know where we were in the sequence. And the napkins were paper, which didn't quite match the rest of the otherwise elegant tableware. Also, there wasn't a clear theme between the dishes. One moment it's buttered chicken, then Norwegian reindeer, then a French-style pâté, and then a taco. It didn't really make sense. Or maybe that was the entire point? That we're tasting the chef's favorite flavors from all over the world, reimagined with local ingredients? That's something I wish the chef would have shared more about. The why behind the menu. Even the order was a little unusual. Risotto almost at the end, after the buttered chicken as an amuse-bouche. It doesn't really make sense, but in reality, it totally worked. Every single dish was so full of flavor, and you could feel the heart behind it. It felt like the chef just made what he thought was good, and it was. Also, I need to mention this. I had the best Pornstar Martini in Norway here. It was not too sweet, and it didn't taste like syrup. It came with a shot of champagne, and of course it had a passion fruit inside. On the next day, we couldn't leave Berlevåg without tasting their regular menu. And I'm so glad we did. We had a few things, and everything was extremely good. The king crab taco was insanely good. The tortillas were homemade, and the flavors were perfectly balanced. Super simple, but honestly, one of the best things I've ever eaten. I would drive for hours again just for that taco. To wrap up this video, Restaurant Oliver is a hidden gem at the edge of the world. It's wild that a place like this exists in such an isolated village, and that it's thriving. Yes, there are things to improve, but what they've created here is truly special. And I think it's just the beginning. The place had a soul, and I really mean that. The apartment we stayed at, the restaurant itself, the food, the pairings, everything had kind of a charm that you honestly can't fake. And the village itself has a vibe like nowhere else. Lars and Alma have become such great ambassadors for Berlevåg, and I truly wish them all the success in the world with this restaurant. If you're traveling to Northern Norway, put this place on the list. Even if it takes hours to get there, it's worth the journey. That's it for today. Thanks for watching this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unique food and travel stories from all over the world. See you in the next episode.